I went on a work trip, leaving my wife at home with our daughter. As soon as I left, my wife went out to spend the night with her lover, leaving our daughter alone. She turned off her phone and didn't respond to calls. Then I got a call from the hospital. They had my daughter in critical condition. She needed a donation. I cut my trip short and rushed there, but when arrived, it was too late. My wife's cheating led to a tragic end. The story begins with Jack, a hard-working IT consultant from Chicago, addressing the audience directly. He explains how his demanding career often takes him on work trips, leaving his wife, Emily, and their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, at home. Jack's love for his family shines through as he talks about how he works tirelessly to give them the best life possible. However, he mentions a nagging feeling that something has been off with Emily lately. She's been distant, distracted, and less affectionate. Brushing it off as stress from parenting and household responsibilities, Jack decides to focus on his trip. As Jack finishes setting the stage, his tone becomes somber, and he looks directly at the camera. He asks a chilling question. But what happens when you trust someone so much, only for them to shatter your world in ways you could never imagine? This question lingers, pulling the audience into a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and irreversible tragedy. Jack transitions from his somber introduction to reflect on the life he shared with Emily and Lily. He recalls tender moments with Lily, a curious and playful 6-year-old who adored spending time with her dad. From bedtime stories to their weekend trips to the park in their suburban Chicago neighborhood, Jack shares how Lily was the light of his life, her laughter filling their home with joy. He emphasizes how being a father was the most fulfilling part of his life, and he always made an effort to balance his work commitments with quality time at home. Jack then shifts to the reason for his work trip, a high-stakes business meeting in New York City. He explains that this trip was not just another job obligation, but a significant career opportunity that could secure a better future for his family. Before leaving, Jack made sure everything at home was in order, from Lily's favorite meals to a detailed schedule for Emily. He trusted Emily completely to handle things in his absence, as she had always done before. However, Jack admits to noticing something strange about Emily in the days leading up to his departure. She seemed distant and preoccupied, barely engaging in their usual conversations. When he kissed her goodbye at the door, she offered only a half-hearted smile. Jack recalls how he had chalked it up to exhaustion or stress from managing the household. But now, looking back, he wonders if that indifference was an early warning sign of what was to come. The story shifts to the day of Jack's departure. After hugging Lily tightly and promising to bring her a gift from New York, Jack kisses Emily goodbye at the door. He notices her lukewarm response but brushes it off, reminding her to call or text if there's any issue at home. Emily replies with a curt, almost indifferent, "Sure," before walking back into the house. Jack drives away, unaware of the storm brewing behind him. Once Jack is gone, Emily's demeanor changes completely. She quickly gets dressed, choosing a more provocative outfit than usual, and grabs her purse. She initially calls a babysitter, likely to maintain the appearance of responsibility, but cancels at the last minute, deciding instead to leave Lily alone. Emily glances at the clock before turning off her phone and stepping out to meet her lover at a downtown Chicago hotel, far from their suburban neighborhood. Back at home, Lily wakes up from a nap to find the house eerily quiet. Confused and scared, she begins calling out for her mother but gets no response. She picks up the landline and tries calling Emily's cell phone multiple times, only to hear it go straight to voicemail. As fear turns to hunger, Lily decides to take matters into her own hands. She heads to the kitchen to prepare a snack, but her young age and lack of supervision lead to a tragic accident. Whether it's a fall from a stool while reaching for a high shelf, a severe allergic reaction to something she mistakenly consumes, or a fire caused by an attempt to use the stove, the result is catastrophic. Lily is left unconscious or critically injured, her cries unheard in the empty house. This moment, filled with tension and heartbreak, becomes the pivotal event that connects Jack's rising panic during his work trip with the devastating climax waiting for him at the hospital. Jack's carefully balanced world comes crashing down during what should have been a routine work dinner in New York City. As he sits with colleagues, his phone buzzes. Expecting it to be a casual update from Emily or Lily, he answers with a smile. Instead, his heart sinks as he hears the voice on the other end, an emergency room nurse from a hospital in Chicago. The nurse urgently informs him that Lily has been admitted in critical condition after an accident at home. They explain that she requires an immediate blood or organ donation, and time is of the essence. Overcome with fear and guilt, Jack doesn't hesitate. He excuses himself from the dinner, barely able to speak, and rushes to book the next flight home. As he waits at the airport, his panic grows with every passing second. He frantically dials Emily's number, but each call goes unanswered, sending him into a spiral of frustration and confusion. Why wasn't she with Lily? Why wasn't she answering her phone? These questions haunt him during the agonizing journey back. When Jack finally arrives at the hospital, he's met with devastating news. Despite the medical team's best efforts, Lily didn't survive. The weight of the revelation crushes him, leaving him in a state of shock. He collapses into a chair, his mind racing with a torrent of emotions: grief, guilt, and anger. Jack blames himself for leaving his daughter behind, but his anguish quickly shifts toward Emily. How could she abandon their daughter when she needed her the most? Jack's devastation is compounded by the mystery of Emily's absence, leaving him with a painful truth. The family he thought he could rely on had crumbled in the most tragic way possible. The morning after Lily's tragic death, Emily finally returns home. She walks through the door, her appearance disheveled, a faint scent of perfume and alcohol lingering on her clothes. Completely unaware of the night's catastrophic events, she casually drops her bag on the counter, assuming Jack is still in New York. However, when she sees him sitting silently at the kitchen table, his face pale and his eyes hollow with grief, her confident demeanor falters. Jack stands and walks toward her, his voice trembling with controlled rage as he asks her where she was. Confused and defensive, Emily tries to deflect, mumbling about staying with a friend and needing a break. Jack cuts her off, his voice rising as he reveals everything: the hospital's call, Lily's condition, and how he rushed back only to find that it was too late to save her. Emily freezes, the color draining from her face as she processes the weight of his words. When Jack demands to know why she left their daughter alone and why her phone was off, Emily stumbles through a series of excuses, claiming she didn't think it was a big deal or needed a night to herself. But Jack isn't interested in her justifications. His grief transforms into anger as he confronts her about her betrayal, not just of their marriage, but of their shared responsibility as parents. He tells her that her selfish choices led directly to their daughter's death, and nothing she says can undo the damage. The confrontation culminates with Jack walking away, his decision already made. He reveals that he has filed for divorce and will never forgive her for abandoning their daughter. Emily is left standing alone in the house, overwhelmed by the consequences of her actions, as Jack departs to mourn Lily in peace. This confrontation serves as the emotional release after the tragedy, showing the fallout of Emily's betrayal and Jack's resolve to rebuild his life without her. It also drives home the message of accountability and the devastating impact of selfishness, tying the resolution back to the themes introduced in the opening moments of the story. As the story nears its end, Jack sits in a quiet moment of reflection, his voice filled with both sorrow and resolve. He speaks directly to the audience, recounting how the events of that fateful night changed his life forever. Losing Lily was a pain unlike anything he had ever imagined, and the betrayal by Emily made it even harder to comprehend. Jack explains that the tragedy was not just the result of one reckless decision, but a culmination of misplaced trust and selfish priorities. He admits he still struggles to forgive himself for leaving on that work trip, even though he knows he couldn't have predicted the outcome. Jack shifts his focus to the lesson he wants others to take from his story. He emphasizes the importance of trust, not just in relationships but in the responsibilities that come with being a parent. He warns against taking loved ones for granted, urging viewers to prioritize their families over fleeting distractions. Jack's words carry the weight of someone who has lived through the ultimate heartbreak, making his message deeply personal and impactful. In his final moments on screen, Jack looks into the camera with a somber expression, posing a poignant question to his audience. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Could you forgive someone who cost you everything? He encourages viewers to share their thoughts in the comments, inviting them to engage in a dialogue about trust, betrayal, and accountability. Jack ends the video by thanking viewers for listening to his story and reminding them to cherish their loved ones every day. He urges them to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, emphasizing the importance of learning from the experiences of others. With that, the video closes, leaving viewers with a heavy but meaningful reflection on the consequences of selfishness and the fragility of family bonds. Thank you for being a part of this story with me. If it moved you, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Narrative Stories. I've noticed many of you who enjoy these stories aren't subscribed yet by subscribing. You're not just following a channel, you're becoming part of a community that values deep, meaningful storytelling. Let's continue exploring these heartfelt journeys together. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you won't miss our next story.